Hello, and thank you for being with me in this video. My name is Rodolfo Montes again, and today I'm going to be sharing a strategy or a structure of the lesson plan that I would implement in the classroom. The plan of action or the lesson plans that I would add to the lessons relating to the novel is that I would divide a pattern of 1 and 2 weeks. Uh, the pattern of the first week would include for students to be involved in the introduction. That would be for the first week. And the objective would be that the learner will view introduction of movie in class tied to historical context, including visuals and vocabulary, which is something I did already earlier in the first video. That is the objective. The task will be that the learners will reflect and write a short essay to an open-ended question after viewing the introduction of movie The Giver. The only thing I forgot about that introduction was that I didn't expose or present a question. Rather than I presented the students' ideas as to what images or what background knowledge they had about certain figures or certain political personalities or certain types of government concerning how people have been governed by powerful leaders or dictators or in our case in this society democracy. However, if I would have created a question, the question would be, to what type of historical events do you relate the introduction of the movie The Giver? That would be a more direct, guided introduction to the movie that I did on the previous video. I would also offer the students a writing prompt. The writing prompt will be the introduction of the movie The Giver can relate to historical events which include, and that's how students would either write about personalities, important leaders or dictators that have been very harsh rulers or leaders or events. That would be the pattern of the first week. Continuing the pattern of the first week, this pattern follows of the first week would be for 5 days. This would be up to the fourth day of the week. It would be reading the novel. The objective includes, again, the learner will make inferences based on textual evidence from the giver in reading, discussing, and writing notes. Task. After the bell rings, there will be a warm-up, and the learner will read a quote from a PowerPoint and write it on journal, the definition of utopia and dystopia, which will be given a time frame of 5 minutes for the students to write on their journals. And the learner will read along as a group, following the audio for 25 minutes. So another plan in this lesson would be to read with the students the audio. Another thing is that the learner will reflect, comment, and will answer orally to open-ended questions from a chapter presented by me, the teacher, or the future teacher. And then the learner will write short notes from novel on journal. On fourth day, students will be reminded to study their notes for homework, and they will be given a quiz on Friday. The next objective for the third day will be the same pattern. Or actually, I'm sorry, the second pattern week will be up to a third day, which would be the first week. I repeat, the first week the students did their warm-up, and then we read the story together, and then we answered open-ended questions. For the second week, which is a different pattern, I will arrange students in small groups during and after reading. And the objective includes that the learner will examine elements of plot, specifically conflict, climax, and resolution, compare main characters and events and to events in history. Make predictions while reading and analysis. Again, the tasks will be note taking to the chapter read in guided format. Optional to a structure. And the resources will be paper and pencil, and they will be using a plot diagram as a printable. For the fourth day on the second pattern of the week, or the fourth day of that second week or second pattern, the objective will be that students will gather in a circle around the room to discuss with the instructor some of the questions presented by instructor. The task will be that students will answer to questions and take notes as well. The learner will be note taking for reviewing those notes for homework for an open-ended quiz on Friday. So different to the first week pattern, instead of being a quiz, the second week pattern will have an open-ended question as a quiz for students on Friday. And I didn't specify here, but the time frame will be ample for the students to be writing, and that's something that I'm planning in my lessons. And then for the week, for the actual, which is the second pattern, the fifth day will be the objective. After the bell rings for class, the students will be given the chance to review the notes prior to taking the written quiz for 10 minutes. So before the quiz, the students will have a little bit of time to review the notes they wrote on Thursday. The task will be the students will answer an open-ended question up to half a page for 15 minutes. So the students can write an answer to a question that I might present. This question could as well be related to some of the meanings or some of the content that could be found in the reading. There's a lot of themes that could also come into play. There's a lot of political, social, and as well the type of governance or government that took place in this novel. It says here, after quiz, the students will continue reading a chapter and then reflect over the weekend on the chapter. The following week, the students will resume the first pattern week, which means that after doing this week in which they were in groups, they're going to go back to the first pattern, which will be to read all together and to emphasize the warm-up again. Shortly, I'm going to be presenting you some of the warm-up questions or the warm-up PowerPoint for the students for the pattern of week 1. And shortly I will be putting this. Hello again. Thank you for being with me again on this lesson planning activity. What I'm presenting here, as I explained in the first part of the video, is that for the first week or the pattern or the first pattern for the week of the lesson plan, I had shared with you that we will be, or the learners will be doing or following the starting of the period with writing down on their journals with this little warm-up. I call it a warm-up. That way the students can be more or less familiarized to what type of vocabulary they might find in the reading or the novel of the giver. So let's say I already gave the introduction for that video that I had shared earlier on the words of dystopia and utopia. And in this particular pattern, it's the day following that introduction that I had given on the first video that I uploaded through Seesaw. And for this one, it says that the students will be reading a quote: "The life where nothing was ever unexpected or inconvenient or unusual, the life without color, pain, or past." That sounds something very interesting, because that would definitely be a utopia, a life without pain or past. However, some of the context there gives us an idea that there's also dystopia, a life without color. So that's something to make the students delve deeper into what they're going to be reading as after this warm-up. So I'm gonna assign students to write on their journal the following definitions: utopia, an imagined place or state of things in which everything is perfect; dystopia, an imagined place or state in which everything is unpleasant or bad; or typically a totalitarian or environmentally degraded environment or degraded one. That is something that I would plan to do for the warm-up for the pattern, or for the first pattern of that week, or following that pattern. Now, let's say that we would do the next day. I would as well add another warm-up, adding some of the words related again to the novel. Here we see a quote. This quote, I wrote it. I made it up. If it's a mistake, feel free to leave comments. I don't mind. The quote says, "The idea of handling pizza for the party was palpable, but I became distraught knowing that no one would pitch in to pay." So again, the students are gonna look into these pictures, the pizza, and the person with no money or nobody else wanted to pitch in for the pizza party or for this party. And in their journal, the students will write the following definitions: palpable, so intense as to seem almost tangible. Synonyms: perceptible, detectable, observable, tangible. Distraught, deeply upset and agitated. Synonyms: worried, upset, and distressed. So this is something that I would plan to do for the pattern, or for the first pattern of that week. As I had mentioned, the first pattern of that week would be to give a warm-up and to have students write down their notes and definitions on some of the words that are not very common in everyday life usage, like in this case, distraught or palpable. These are words that we rarely use in our vocabulary because, however, these are found, in the novel. And shortly I will see, well, actually that's it. I'm gonna also be sharing with you some of the graphics or some of the information or some of the questions that I might use for the quizzes, or some of the things that I will use as well for the other week, or the week pattern. Thank you. And I'll be adding that shortly. Hello again, and thank you for being with me again. Some of the activities that I would give the students, as I was mentioning earlier, would be their journal, of course, and quizzes, and arranging students in groups. I might think, or I believe that could be related to a differentiated instruction. I honestly don't have that specified in the lesson plans. However, again, if there's any negative comment, feel free to stress those out and give them. I don't mind. However, there's some information that I was able to get, or some handouts that I was able to obtain. And analyzing the giver, this could be some information that, or some of the resource or handouts that could be used for students. One of them, not necessarily has to be this one, but it could relate to, similar to what their journal, or what the students are writing in the journal. And this one is more about the students to have a reflective assignment. And in this one it says, I don't know if you could see from the screen, but I'm going to read it. It says, analyzing the giver. Think about what each of the following might symbolize in the giver. Remember, an item can symbolize more than one thing or idea. This is, again, to help students delve deeper into the reading. It says item, the color red. What does it symbolize? The apple, the sled, light eyes. I don't know if you could see that. The river, Gabriel, December. So this is what the students will be doing. It says, I already read that for you. So that is something that the students will be writing about. Writing down what it symbolizes or represent in the novel. The other part of this handout is that it says, think about each of the following names of characters in the giver. Consider people in the Bible with the same or very similar names this is something that might be related to a religious context. We don't want to go that route for litigation purposes, but as well, it could apply to other ways of thought or other philosophers. But in this case, since this particular handout relates to a religious content or something related to what, let's say, in this area we're aware of, could be Catholicism or Christianity or Jehovah's Witnesses or any other type. We're open to any type of thought. But in this case, the giver character, Jonas, and over here it says about the Bible. Okay, so Jonas, Gabriel, what connection do they have, or what similarities? Now, I saw that other classmates did an excellent job presenting other texts and comparing those two stories or those novels with the circular graph, which is amazing, and I congratulate those students that did that, or those classmates. In this handout, it's almost having the same approach, but however, this one is broken down more specifically on the characters that come out in the novel. Let's say Jonas, Gabriel, the character in the giver, the character in the religious context, or other philosophical thought. Jonas, Gabriel, it says here, and this is the key. This is the key for the teacher to have an idea as to what expect from students. Now, I'm not saying that students should have the exact same responses. These are just general ideas, again, to have the students engaged. Analyzing the giver. Think about what each of the following might symbolize again. So the color red, passion, love, choice. That's what some of the things that the students could write down that could be symbolizing. The apple, rebellion, sin, Adam and Eve. Choice. Jonas chose to sin when he stole the apple. Variety. There's also variety. There's lead. Traveling, journey, could be real or spiritual. Freedom, danger. Light eyes, special powers, abilities, uniqueness, depth. The river is special powers, abilities, uniqueness, depth. Oh, I'm sorry. Light eyes. I'm sorry. My mistake. Light eyes means special powers, abilities, uniqueness, depth. The river, boundaries, escape, death. Gabriel, innocent, change, acceptance. December, it says new beginnings, birth. Okay, the key for the second question on this handout: think about each of the following names or characters in the giver. Consider people in the Bible or in the religious thought or philosophical thought. Do you think the author intended to make religious or philosophical connections with these characters' names? Describe a possible connection. So it says here Jonas. It's an example in the giver. Who's Jonas? He's the receiver. The receiver. It says connection. Jonas could represent Jonah from the Bible or the religious context, who is trapped in the whale. Jonas is trapped in the community. Both are scapegoats. Jonas could also represent Jesus. Jonas bear the pain for the community in the form of receiving and keeping memories. Jesus died for the sins of others. Also, this could also be emphasized to what we live with our parents, what our parents do for us as well. This is just an example. The other one is Gabriel. Brings about changing. So this is another connection to religious or philosophical thought. And this is something that I found online that I was able to use as a resource or to get idea. Of course, I'm giving the credit. I downloaded this from a site, Teachers Pay Teachers. It has a cost. This is free, but other documents cost about $1, and you could be able to download. Of course, these are just ideas. Giving the appropriate credit to the publisher or to the person that posted this online. Another thing that I wanted to mention that I found interesting. and most of us know about. And I'm going to share this real quick. And I don't know if it came up or not. I think it did. Probably not. Okay. I'm assuming. Okay, let me see if it opens in this program. Excuse my. Oh no, I didn't open it. Okay, what I was trying to present in this part is to just have an idea of the plot diagram. A plot diagram, which is okay. It's right here. Which is the beginning, the rising action. Oh man, let's see. Okay, this is gonna look pretty blurry. I hope you all can see it. But we can use also the climax. What is the beginning, the rising action, the middle or the climax of an action, the end, the resolution. And usually this is part of every story, and this is also a refresher for students to be using in their assignments, in their activities, and the things or questionings related to the novel of the group. And shortly, I'm going to share with you some of the things that I would like to implement in the discussion questions. I'm going to try to see if I can open them here online. Oh, yes. Okay. And if it's too hard to see, I'm so sorry about it, but I'm going to try to focus more a little bit into this. It says here, discussion questions. Okay, so what was the role of the family unit in Jonas community, and how is it different from the concept of family in our culture? So these are open-ended questions, but students should not be ashamed of writing or sharing with either in a group setting or individually what they think of the story. It says here, what was the role of the family unit in Jonas' community, and how is it different from the concept of family in our culture? The family unit was an artificial family selected by elders. Its role was to raise children by the rules. It says here, children were assigned to each set of parents. When the children were old enough, the parents were removed to a home for childless parents. There were no natural connections among family members. There was no such thing as love. There were no grandparents or sense of community. This is something pretty interesting for students, and more than anything, the goal is for the students to understand the importance and the way of interpreting things that they read. Another question that I might bring up in a discussion or in a handout is that, what did you notice about the language used by the author in this book? How does it reflect the community itself? The lack of figurative language and showy adjective robs the language of color, just as the community has been robbed of color. Almost all words are restricted to literal meanings, taking away the freedom and playfulness that figurative language allows. The people of the community have also been robbed of freedom and playfulness and are restricted to literal actions and interactions with one another. Many new terms are mechanical or euphemistic. Release for kill, which reinforces the lack of emotion and the sense of control in the community. So again, these are just things or ideas that could be used in discussions or in questions. One thing that I was so shocked about this novel was that those people that were born different were released. Something that I really caught my attention was that they were released. And again, we present this novel enclosed into two vocabulary words that I want to stress again: dystopia, utopia. And I hope this is something that was beneficial. If not, feel free to leave the comments. But this is something that I think is important to use as part of a lesson plan. And as well, I want to stress that after we finish reading the novel, we will be able to view the full film in the class together. I appreciate you watching this video and this lesson. Thank you.